Hi, I'm Isabel Sandoval. I'm the director of Moonglow, which is in the big screen competition here at the Rotterdam Film Festival.
Okay, okay. So first question, tell me a bit about the story, how it came up, why you chose the specific time period.
I, you know, early in the pandemic, in isolation, I started watching and revisiting works of classic noir and melodrama, like from the 40s and 50s. And not just Hollywood, but the works of Max Ophuls, Jean-Pierre Melville and Nicolas Ray, films like In a Lonely Place, The Earrings of Madame Day, and Le Cercle Rouge. And yeah, I just found myself being drawn to that world and that atmosphere and sense of gray and compromised morality. And the movie Moonglow is set during martial law in the late 70s, during the Marcos dictatorship. And it's a period that I've already explored before in my second feature, Apparition. But now revisiting it, I wanted to make a film. And I'm also now older. I think I'm more mature. It's been over a decade since I made Apparition, and now just looking back and realizing, the changes I've experienced. I think that the person I've become, I wanted to make a film that's a meditation on disillusionment, I guess. On disillusionment and realizing, that the person you become was not the person that you had hoped or intended to be. And I wanted to explore that through the visual grammar and through a story that is noir or a crime drama on the surface, but underneath is kind of a dramatic tragedy and melodrama. So it has the architecture and the scaffolding of classic noir, but its emotional logic is melodrama.
And you wanted to focus a bit on corruption, or no?
Yes, one of the insights in the film is that since the protagonists of the film are middle class, the bourgeoisie, Moonglow is also about insulation, whereas the insulation in Apparition, these nuns are seemingly sheltered from and isolated from the realities outside the convent, martial law, and the turbulence that is going on around them because of their faith, the tenets of their faith that tells them to pray. In Moonglow, they're insulated because of their class privilege and proximity to power, and that because they are belong to an elevated socioeconomic class, they think mistakenly that they are sheltered from and not subject to the bigger forces, in society.
And do you think there are some parallels with now, with the current situation in the Philippines in general, how people are now?
Certainly, I feel like also, I think one of the ideas that, or the commentary that I make, I'd like to think subtly in the film, or at least with a little bit of flair, is how half a century later, the Philippines feels like it's stuck, where it was. And concretely, the son of the former dictator, Ferdinand Marcos, is the current president of the Philippines as well. And that, I feel like, with every generation, especially you start out when you're younger, you're hungry and driven to make change, and you're full of idealism and optimism. And as you grow older and you get subsumed, and I guess absorbed by, the systems and institutions, and finding your, I guess, moral integrity compromised, if not corroded, and waking up one morning and not realizing, or waking up one morning and not recognizing the face that you're seeing in the mirror.
And so this is your fourth movie?
It is my fourth feature.
So how do you feel you have changed through the years as a person, as a filmmaker, from the first to now? Yeah.
I would like to think that, I guess, as an artist, especially as a filmmaker, I would like to think that I am becoming more and more of a visual filmmaker. I remember making Senorita and my first feature, and just thinking how verbose it was. There was a lot of dialogue, pages and pages. So it's very like dialogue driven, I think, to the point that I felt, in a certain sense, it was like a play that was filmed. But whereas in my subsequent features, I have a more complicated and sometimes even ambivalent relationship with language, and that, language and dialogue specifically is not necessarily there or employed to convey.
It's okay.
I, in my subsequent features, I think I'm having, or started to have, a more complex and ambivalent relationship with dialogue in the film, and that they're not necessarily being employed and spoken by the characters to convey straightforwardly or forthrightly what exactly it is they mean, or maybe even they don't mean what they're saying. They don't understand their motivations, and sometimes dialogue is meant to obfuscate or hide, or conceal what they really mean, and that is the case, especially in my last two features, Lingua Franca and Moonglow, in that oftentimes it is what is not being spoken, out loud, what's not being verbalized, that has or carries more emotional truth about the characters than what is in fact being said.
And as an actress, have you changed, improved?
Oh my gosh, I can speak about, I guess, my confidence as a performer, in that I guess, having had more experience acting in my own work and also the work of other directors, that I feel like I'm able to better use my face and my body as an instrument to convey ideas, my ideas as a filmmaker, and to also try to set and maintain the tone and the mood I want in my films, because I feel like the lead performance is very critical in trying to get that tone, and it contributes essentially to the sensibility of the film.
But why do you choose to play yourself? Is it? I mean, it's complicated, I guess, both directing and acting.
Yeah, it's funny. It's because
It's not
I
for
think I just-
financial reasons, I guess.
no. I mean,
A bit.
I think it's more. That's how I think as a filmmaker, I guess, and that, when you think about it, since I write my own scripts, the protagonist or the main character is essentially kind of an alter ego, or a doppelganger, a psychological and emotional doppelganger for the filmmaker, and I happen to write characters that I identify with, I guess, perhaps not superficially, I'm not like a police detective for sure, or I wasn't looking after an elderly lady in Brooklyn, but I understand the psychological profile of these characters, I guess their desires and vulnerabilities and their dreams. that allowed me to inhabit them in the film. But of course, I mean, I don't see myself like acting in every work or film that I make.
But practically, how does it work when you're acting? Who's directing?
I am still directing. I just make sure that we are prepped for the scene. It's important for me that I trust my cinematographer, my assistant director, and my actors, co-actors in the scene as well, so that we are aligned and we know what I expect to happen. And when camera rolls, I'm just in the moment. I'm being present, and I feel like it's easier for me. Or whenever I act in the film, I just think of it as one less person that I need to direct, because I know exactly what I want out of myself, in a given scene.
Okay. And how does the casting work for the film? In general, how do you work with the actors?
I am not a director who kind of micro directs my actors. I think casting the roles right is half battle won. And the second half is kind of just both giving them the room and the leeway to explore both nuance and their own interpretation to make their character and the interaction in the scene feel alive. I think it's really a matter of making sure the scene individually and the film as a whole feels like it's pulsing with some kind of life. I think yeah. So I never do more than like a few takes, because I feel like in fact it's the earlier takes that has more of the frisson of energy and electricity to it.
And do you allow improvisation or you're strict?
It's funny because I try to be very precise in the very dramatic scenes, but in scenes that are lighter, I tend to be looser and more freewheeling and encourage, improvisation. I think because my characters tend to be very kind of somber and morose, I think it's these lighthearted moments that I allow the actor underneath, or the person underneath the character, to kind of pierce through that surface.
Okay. And tell me a bit about cinematography, what you want to do with the visuals of the film this time.
Yeah, I mean, the cinematography for this film is really quite different from Lingua Franca, and that Lingua Franca is more austere, more static, whereas here the camera glides, there's certainly more movement, it's more exuberant, and I feel like because in a certain sense these characters are a lot more reined in and contained, especially, I mean, they're not very demonstrative or declarative until that scene halfway through the film. I want the camera to articulate and communicate their emotional landscape in some sense.
And about editing, the pace of the film?
Yeah, the pace of the film, I think that's one way that I diverge, I think, from the typical noir rhythm, in that I think a specific type of noir, because I think noir these days is very much associated with the James A. Cain school. That's gritty, grimy, very procedural, propulsive. Whereas I think the world of Moonglow is closer to that of Raymond Chandler. It's more atmospheric. It's more about the mood. It's more about rumination and being meditative, and the emotional devastation and disillusionment. And so that is, I think I also feel like, as in the films of John Pierre Melville, it's slowing it down and almost, in certain passages, make it feel like real human time. That makes it feel more grounded, and gives it a more human element rather than just mechanistic in terms of fulfilling certain genre conventions of the noir.
Okay. And tell me a bit about what is your opinion of the Filipino movie industry at the moment?
I think, and I can only speak about really the independent and art house scene. I think it's becoming a very, very vibrant moment now in Philippine cinema. You have filmmakers like Martique Escobar, Ram of Filipiniana, and of course you have Lab Diaz. So I think there is now a breadth and a wider spectrum of aesthetics and sensibilities that show how Philippine cinema, art house Philippine cinema is flourishing. And yeah, I think it's just very exciting that these different worldviews and sensibilities about that deal with what it's like to be a Filipino, and also, I think in my experience, what it's like to be a diasporic, Filipino, are being seen.
And are plans for the film to open in the Philippines? Or?
I think now we just had our world premiere at Rotterdam, and we're premiering at other festivals in other countries over the next few months. I think I'll be having a conversation with the producer soon and determining when we can put the film out.
Okay. And next projects, what are you working after this?
I'm gonna go back to writing a little bit. I'm also going back to the Philippines for a few weeks to act in a project by a director that I admire. It's a secret for now, but hopefully it gets announced soon. But yeah, I think I'm going to be taking a short break and being creative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I guess that's it. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you
your
so
time.
much.